Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest with you, I was looking at the stack of sources for today, and at first glance, I thought maybe you dropped a library card catalog on the floor and just picked up whatever landed, face up.
Yeah, it does look a bit like a garage sale of information, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, look at this mix we have. We've got a gritty, technical GitHub guide on how to hack graphics cards to train AI models. Then a forum thread from a music software site about a looper glitching by a few milliseconds.
All right.
Then we jump to a philosophical essay on why computers can't write great novels. And finally, we land on the massive framework for the AP US history exam.
It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot. But, usually when you bring me a stack like this, there's a hidden thread. So I have to ask, what exactly is the connection between a glitched out AI model and the AP US history exam?
Well, they're all, at their core, attempts to build a system of understanding.
Okay, let's unpack that. A system of understanding.
Think about it. Reality, whether it's raw sound waves, or the creative spark in your brain, or 500 years of messy human events, it's chaotic. It's noise.
Yeah.
To make sense of it, we build boxes, we build frameworks. We try to force that chaos into a structure that we can actually process.
So the AI model is a box for sound, and the history textbook is a box for time.
Exactly. But the fascinating thing about this specific stack of sources is that they don't just show us the boxes. They show us where the boxes break. They focus on the ghost in the machine. The glitches, the biases, the things that just refuse to be categorized.
I really love that image, the ghost in the machine. Let's start with the literal machine then, because this first source was a wild ride. We are looking at a discussion thread regarding something called RAVE, Real-Time Audio Variational Autoencoder.
Which is quite a mouthful.
A serious mouthful. And specifically, we're looking at a training compendium written by a user named Ballerberg9005. And this reads less like a technical manual and more like a survival diary of someone trapped in a digital basement.
It really does. And for context, for those who aren't coding wizards, RFE is a machine learning model. You feed it audio, say 10 hours of violin music, and it tries to learn how to reproduce that sound.
Right.
But unlike a sampler, which just plays back a recording you made, RFE is trying to understand the texture of the sound so it can generate entirely new audio.
But Ballerberg9005 and other users in the thread, they keep running into this wall where the AI just doesn't get it. There's a user in the thread who asks, essentially, hey, I hummed into the model. Why didn't it turn into a violin?
Right, because they had trained it on violins. They expected a Star Trek computer. Input, hum, output, violin concerto.
Which feels like a logical expectation, for where tech is at right now.
To a human, yes. But the source explains that the model is a black box. It creates something called latent space.
Okay, stop there for a second. Define that for us. Latent space.
Imagine you took a song, all the frequencies, the pitch, the timbre, and you crushed it into a mathematical soup. That soup is the latent space. The model looks for statistical features in that soup. But here's the key. It doesn't know what a melody is. It has no idea what a note is.
So it has zero concept of actual music theory.
None. It only understands texture. So if you hum, and the acoustic texture of your voice doesn't perfectly align with the mathematical soup of the violin data it's trained on,
you don't get a violin.
Exactly. You just get noise.
And getting to that noise is apparently a nightmare in itself. The guide talks about the hardware required, and we aren't talking about running this on your laptop.
Oh no. You need massive GPUs, RTX 3090s or 4090s. And the training takes two phases. The first phase is described in the guide as stingy and offensive.
I laughed out loud at that description. Stingy and offensive. It sounds like a Yelp review for a bad restaurant.
It's the sound of the model failing. It sounds like a distorted radio or static, and it takes hundreds of thousands of steps just to stop sounding terrible. Then you hit phase 2.
The adversarial phase.
Right. That's where it actually starts to refine the sound and create something usable.
But here's the part that really surprised me. Since most people don't have a supercomputer lying around, they rent them. And this guide recommends a site called Clore.ai, where you rent GPUs from other people using Bitcoin.
Which brings us to the Wild West aspect of this source.
It felt incredibly cyberpunk to me. You're renting a server from a stranger on the internet, and Ballerberg9005 warns that a significant chunk of them are just flat-out scams.
Which is a very practical warning. You can rent a server, and it might just sit there deploying forever. Meanwhile, it is burning your Bitcoin by the minute.
Wow.
Or even more insidious, the host is throttling the card. They rent you a powerful card, but cap the speed so they can use the rest of the power for themselves or maybe another client.
It's the digital equivalent of a taxi driver taking the long route to run up the meter.
That is exactly what it is.
But I loved the fix the user suggests. It's so practical. They say, as soon as you rent the server, run a command called hashcat-b.
Right, hashcat. It's technically a password cracking tool. But in this context, Ballerberg 9005 is using it as a lie detector.
A benchmark.
Yes. You run it to benchmark the card. If the card claims to be an RTX 4090, but it can't crack hashes at 4090 speeds, you know you're being scammed.
And you just kill the rental immediately.
Exactly. It shows that even in high-tech AI development, you still need street smarts. You have to verify the reality against the claim.
So we have AI struggling to learn sound, and humans struggling to verify the hardware. Let's pivot to the humans actually making music. We have this forum thread from Cycling74 about a tool called Karma.
Yes, this is for users of Max MSP, which is a visual programming language for music. Karma is an external looper. It records sound and plays it back, allowing you to overdub and change lengths and speeds dynamically.
It sounds simple compared to the AI stuff, but the thread is about a user named Larry Sayer who is losing his mind over a delay.
A latency of 7 to 10 milliseconds.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here. 10 milliseconds, that is 1/100th of a second. Can a human actually feel that?
Oh, absolutely. In music, feel is measured in milliseconds. If you are overdubbing, say, layering a drum beat on top of a guitar track, and the drums are 10 milliseconds late, it doesn't sound wrong in a glitchy way. It sounds drunk.
Drunk?
Yeah, it feels sluggish. The groove collapses. Larry Minder describes his loops as feeling lazy. He's playing on the beat, but the machine is putting it just behind the beat.
And the discussion to fix this gets incredibly technical. The developer, Rodrigo, and the community start talking about vector sizes and scheduler overdrive.
This is where we see the box we built for audio clashing with reality again. Vector size is basically the chunk of audio the computer processes at one time.
Like taking a mouthful of food.
Exactly. If the chunk of the vector is too big, the computer is efficient because it swallows less often, but it's slow. That causes latency. If the chunk is too small, the computer is very fast and it has to work so hard to choke and crash.
So you're constantly balancing between sluggish and crash.
That's the ghost in the machine. Between the musician's intention and the speaker, there's this layer of digital negotiation. These buffers and vectors that we usually ignore until it breaks the rhythm.
This friction between what we want the computer to do and what it actually does, it leads perfectly to our third source. It's a text titled Creativity and Unpredictability. And it asks a pretty blunt question. Can a computer ever truly have an aha moment?
And it largely argues no, or at least not like us.
It opens with the famous story of Kekule.
Yes, August Kekule. He was a chemist in the 19th century trying to figure out the structure of the benzene molecule. He couldn't crack it with logic or math. Then he fell asleep and had a dream of a snake biting its own tail, the Ouroboros.
A symbol that has absolutely nothing to do with chemistry.
On the surface, no. But he woke up with a flash of insight. The molecule isn't a line, it's a ring. The source argues that this nonlinear leap, dreaming of a snake to solve a chemistry problem, is something AI fundamentally struggles to do. AI predicts the next logical step based on past data. It doesn't dream in metaphors.
There was another example in there that I thought was even more damning for AI, specifically regarding music. It mentioned a study by Long Higgins regarding Chopin and crescendos.
This is a key concept if you want to understand why computer music often sounds robotic. A crescendo is simply getting louder. If you tell a computer crescendo from volume 1 to volume 10, it does it linearly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
A straight line on a graph.
Right. But to a human ear, a straight line doesn't sound like a smooth increase. It sounds mechanical. It sounds like someone just turning a volume knob. To make it sound smooth and emotional to a human, you actually have to increase the volume exponentially.
So to sound human, you have to break the mathematical rule.
Precisely. Humans play the feeling, not the math. The source argues that AI struggles with this because it's trained on data points, not on the biological reality of how we hear or feel emotion. It can write a soap opera script because soap operas follow strict formulas.
Doctor loves nurse, nurse loves evil twin.
Exactly. But the source argues it can't write a genuinely interesting novel like The French Lieutenant's Woman by John Fowles.
Because that book offers two different endings.
Yes, it offers two endings to mess with the reader. It subverts the very idea of what a novel is. AI is built to fulfill expectations, to predict the most likely next word. It isn't built to subvert expectations for artistic effect.
So if AI follows the rules, but art is often about knowing which rules to break, we need to talk about the rules themselves. Which brings us to the Stack Exchange thread. What constitutes music theory?
This is a classic fight. If you want to start a brawl in a music conservatory, just ask this question.
It definitely felt like a brawl. The core question is music theory a science, like physics describing vibrations, or is it a language?
There's a user in the thread who argues it starts with acoustics, frequency ratios, the literal physics of sound.
That seems logical. A C major chord is a C major chord because of physics.
True. But the consensus in the thread shifts toward the idea that theory is an abstraction of practice.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning the music comes first. The theory comes later to explain what happened. One user called it the map, not the territory.
I really like that distinction. You don't need a map to walk through a forest. You need a map to tell someone else how you did it.
Exactly. And just because the map says go left doesn't mean going right is wrong. It just means you're off the map. This distinction is crucial because it bridges us to our biggest source.
The AP US History Course Framework. This document is massive. It organizes 500 years of human chaos into 9 periods. And honestly, reading it after the music theory debate, I realized history is just music theory for time.
That's a great way to put it. It's an attempt to draw lines around messy, flowing events. And just like the music theory map isn't the song, the history syllabus isn't the past. It's a narrative we construct to try and make sense of it.
And the way they construct it is fascinating. They use these specific nuggets or examples to anchor the periods. Let's look at period 1, 1491, divergent worldview.
Right. They don't just say Europeans met Native Americans. They contrast specific systems of understanding. They list the Spanish encomienda system,
which was a legal system of forced labor and tribute,
against a Lakota winter count on cloth.
I had to look this up. A winter count is a visual history recorded on a buffalo hide or cloth, right?
Yes. But the concept of time is completely different from a European history book. The community selects one single image to represent the entire year, winter. It's often drawn in an outward spiral. It's a visual, communal, cyclical record of time.
Wow.
So placing that next to the Spanish legalistic linear system forces the student to see that 1491 wasn't just a meeting of people. It was a collision of 2 completely different operating systems for reality.
It totally disrupts the idea that history is just one thing after another. Let's look at period 2, the Stoner Rebellion.
This was a major slave uprising in South Carolina in 1739.
But the source notes something really specific about the evidence we have for it. It mentions an account by George Cato.
This is the sourcing skill the AP exam demands. George Cato wasn't at the rebellion. He was the great-great-grandson of the leader of the rebellion. He told this story to a white interviewer during the Great Depression, 200 years later.
So you have an oral history, passed down through generations, then filtered through a government interviewer in the 1930s.
That's the ghost in the machine of history. You aren't reading pure facts, you're reading a game of telephone. The student has to ask, what did George Cato change to make the story safe to tell? What did the interviewer misunderstand? What was lost in 200 years?
It's just like Ballerberg 9005 verifying the GPU with Hashcat. You can't trust the output blindly, you have to benchmark the source.
Exactly. You have to ask, is this server real? Just like you ask, is this historical account accurate?
Moving forward to period 4, the 19th century, the framework connects religion and literature in a way I hadn't thought of. It pairs the Second Great Awakening with Edgar Allan Poe.
It's the tension between light and dark in American culture. On one hand, you have Charles Finney preaching about free will, that you can make yourself a new heart. It's optimistic, empowering.
And on the other hand, you have Poe writing The Telltale Heart,
which is all about madness, guilt, and the subconscious, the things you absolutely can't control. The framework puts them together to show that the American identity was being pulled in 2 opposite directions. The belief in self-improvement versus the fear of the darkness within.
And this framework doesn't skip the messy conflicts over land either, which we see in period 6. It contrasts Las Gordas Blancas with Andrew Carnegie's Gospel of Wealth.
That's a brilliant juxtaposition. Las Gordas Blancas, or the Whitecaps, were a group of Mexican Americans in the Southwest. They were literally cutting down fences to resist angled land grabs and the privatization of open grazing land.
Right, direct resistance.
And placing that next to Carnegie's Gospel of Wealth, which argued that extreme wealth was a natural result of capitalism and that the rich should be the philanthropists who decide how to help the poor. It shows 2 completely incompatible views of property and power.
I want to jump to the modern era, period 1, because this is where I feel a bit old. They're teaching things I remember actually doing.
It's always a shock when your life becomes history.
It really is. They list the Sunbelt migration and the naming of Silicon Valley, but then, right next to these huge economic shifts, they list a sitcom, Que Pasa, USA.
I love that inclusion. It was a bilingual sitcom from the late 70s about a Cuban-American family in Miami.
Why include a sitcom in a serious history framework, though?
Because pop culture is historical evidence. It shows the tension of assimilation, the generation gap, the blending of Spanglish. It tells you things about the human experience that a GDP chart or a treaty simply can't. It's the texture of history, just like the texture of the audio in RDE.
So zooming out, looking at this whole stack of sources, we have Ballerberg 9705 trying to find the signal and the noise of a rented graphics card. We have musician Larry Sayre trying to get the groove right by fixing a 7-millisecond delay.
Yeah.
And we have the history student trying to understand the past by reading a 200-year-old oral history.
It's all exactly the same skill. It is critical thinking. It's looking at the system of understanding the AI model, the software settings, the history book, and asking, where is the bias, where's the error, what is real, and what is just the map?
Because the map is never perfect.
Never. The AI doesn't know what a violin is, it just knows math. The music theory book didn't write the song, it just describes it.
Yeah.
And the history framework isn't the lived experience of the people, it's just a summary. They are tools, and tools break.
That's a humbling thought. We are building all these complex systems just to try and catch a glimpse of reality.
And sometimes, reality is a snake biting its own tail.
Before we go, I want to leave the listener with one final thought from that creativity source.
Yeah.
It mentions something called authorial signatures.
Oh, this is the part that keeps me up at night.
It says that human artists have habitual ways of making random choices. A painter favors a certain brush stroke when they aren't even thinking. A writer favors a certain adjective, we call that style, but the source implies that AI is getting really good at mimicking those habits.
Right. If AI learns to fake your randomness, it essentially learns to fake your soul.
So the question is, if an AI eventually generates a novel that breaks the rules, creates a new structure, and feels completely unique, will we be able to tell the difference between a genuine snake biting its tail insight and just a processing error that happened to work perfectly?
Can a computer have a happy accident, or is it always just a bug?
I don't know. But I'm going to be listening to my music a lot closer this week, looking for those drunk drums.
And checking your GPU hash rates.
Always check the hash rates. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.